Best Electric Vehicle Tech of CES 2023. I feel like this was the year of the EV. The West Hall was entirely filled with electric vehicles as well as technology to support electric vehicles like autonomous driving as well as charging solutions. There were plenty of cars on display that are both on the road right now and some that are still in the concept stage, but regardless, I saw a lot of cool things. So what I want to do in this video is go over some of the things that I saw and share with you some of my best electric vehicle tech that I saw while at CES. So probably my favorite was the Ram 1500 Revolution. This is Ram's first electric vehicle, and this thing, kind of like all the other EV trucks, was a super truck. Like, this thing had all the bells and whistles. It was nice. It was well appointed. It's something that I personally wouldn't want to take on a job site, but regardless, it introduced a lot of really good technology amongst, of course, being an electric vehicle. It had this entire cabin system where all the seats were modular and configurable, so you could actually change the seats in and out. It had a full glass roof. Of course, there was also a frunk, but what was really cool is it was actually a pass-through, so you could lay really long, say, beams of wood from the frunk all the way to the actual bed of the truck itself. This truck is still definitely in the concept phase, so I don't see Ram coming out with this exact truck in the future. I mean, they showed off a lot of really cool things. The interior, again, was really well appointed. I was actually allowed to sit in the vehicle towards the very end, which was cool, but the guy told me not to tug on the steering wheel, so I just kind of sat in there and snapped a quick picture of the inside. But yeah, I think overall, this truck was really cool looking. They didn't discuss anything about like range or towing capacity or really anything like that, as again, this still is in the concept phase. They showed off this cool little robot charger that kind of loops around the truck, moves underneath of the truck, and then actually will start automatically charging the batteries inside of your vehicle, so you don't have to physically, manually plug in the truck. How awful would that be? They actually had this on display at their booth, and the robot was moving very, very slow. It was like a very slow Roomba in its early stages. So in my opinion, the Ram 1500 was definitely the coolest EV at the show, but again, it's still very much in that concept phase. We don't know exact numbers about like range, towing capacity, things like that, but the things they showed are going to make it seem like a very formidable truck in the electric vehicle space, but we won't know exactly what it does until it's in the driveways of an actual consumer and it's out of that concept phase. But Stellantis, which is the parent company, also unveiled another car on stage, and that is the Peugeot Inception. Now, this one was even more of a concept and had these really mean, aggressive, and sharp lines that, in my opinion, kind of makes it look like a DeLorean just a little bit. And it has these really cool doors that kind of open up outwards. So the back door opens up towards the back rather than actually opening up like a regular car door. It opens up to this really spacious interior, although I don't know how comfortable that interior is actually going to be. It seems like a lot of straight lines. It doesn't seem very comfortable. Again, this is a pure concept. Like, who knows if we'll even see this car at all in the future, but I would say that this interior definitely needs to be changed if it ever actually comes to market. Now, another big thing they pushed with this car was this brand new steering wheel, and I think it was called the Hyper Square. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong up here on the screen, but basically it's a steering wheel with these 4 other individual wheels that allow you to control your car. I mean, they were talking about all the different ways you could use it. Personally, I couldn't see it. I'd have to actually try and drive the car using that steering wheel before I could make any sort of comment on it, but it was definitely something that was interesting. Regardless, the entire car was beautiful. It had a really big windshield that sloped down into the hood. That was something I noticed towards the end. The lights were really well positioned, and overall, the car just looked badass. Now, moving on from there, the next company that I would say had the biggest showing at CES in terms of electric vehicles was BMW. And really, they have one of the largest presences out of any company at CES because they kind of have the parking lot in the front of the convention center that's front and center once you actually show up to CES. It's really cool to see what they do with the space every year. It's always something a little bit different. Like, one of the years, they actually had a lot of their M-Series cars drifting and driving around cones and tires with professional drivers, so that was kind of cool to see what an actual BMW can do with a professional driver behind the wheel. Another year, they had their X7 on display before it came out, and they kind of showed some of its off-roading capabilities. I'm doing air quotes around off-roading because even though they were, of course, taking it up over like stilts and up over some different terrain, it was kind of a closed environment. But again, it was cool to see and actually sit inside of that car. This year, though, BMW brought two new electric vehicles, one of which is a concept and the other of which is actually going to come to market. So the concept was called the BMW D, like D-E-E, and really there was nothing more than just the color-changing paint on the outside of the car, which we actually got to see last year at CES 2022. They kind of only were able to change the color between like white and black, but this year they could change the color to any color that they wanted, from pink to purple to yellow, to actually putting displays or designs on the car, like say a checkered display, a plaid display, or maybe even like racing stripes down the middle. So that was pretty cool to see. They've kind of made these improvements in that technology, but this was nothing more than like a pure concept. Like they were kind of touting this whole entire lifestyle, being able to use a voice assistant inside of your car, being able to have the car take you wherever you want. So it was kind of a lot of fluff, but when you stepped outside, BMW was giving everybody a chance to test drive their new electric luxury sedan, and that was the BMW i7, and let me tell you, luxury it was. This car was beautiful inside and out. The seats were super comfortable. All the appointments were perfect. I mean, everything inside of the car was super comfortable, super accommodating. The back seat is kind of built for a person that might have a driver. You have shades that come down. You have seats that have recliners in them, so you can actually put your feet up. You've also got a flip down screen. I mean, the back of this car was really well set up. Now, this was probably the most unique experience that I had in terms of electric vehicles, because this is the one car that we could actually drive. I got a whole lot of footage of my friends actually driving the car, and I myself got a chance to take the car for a spin around the block. Let's just say that my first impressions after having driven it was, I can't wait to get back into my Tesla. I don't know what it was about the car, but it seems like it just didn't handle as well as my Model Y Performance. And I know that I'm kind of comparing two very different cars. I mean, one is a luxury sedan and another is kind of like a sports performance SUV, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, I'd much rather drive the car that I already own than that car for a couple of different reasons. It just felt like it was more connected to the ground and to the road. I realized that with the i7, you might be buying it and then having somebody else drive you. I mean, this is a very, very expensive luxury sedan, but again, at the end of the day, my driving experience was really nothing special. The only thing special is the fact that the ABS system seemed to really have an issue. A couple of times when we were actually driving the car, the brakes like locked up and made us slide when there was really not bad conditions whatsoever. It was just a little bit slick, and that's something that I would have never experienced with my Model Y. So I would say that those are like the big four electric vehicles that we saw at CES this year, right? We had the Ram 1500 Revolution, the Peugeot Inception concept car. We also had the BMW D and the BMW i7. We also got a really quick sneak peek of the Challenger EV from Dodge. It was kind of just sitting there on the show floor. You could touch it, you could look at it, you could walk around it, but it was in such a tight space that it was hard to get any good photos or videos of it. Really, Dodge did not give it much press whatsoever. It was just kind of sitting there. You didn't really know much about it other than the fact that it was a Dodge and that it was an electric vehicle. So it's going to be cool to see more about this in the future once Dodge actually starts giving us some information about it. From there on the show floor, we also got to see the Hummer EV. This is the first time I've actually gotten to see this truck in person. For some reason, I always thought it was bigger, like it looked bigger in the photos and videos. Now, don't get me wrong, it still is a very big super truck, but I would say that the photos made it seem bigger than it actually is. Regardless, it still is a beautiful vehicle. I got a quick second to kind of walk around the car, but again, it was in such a tight space that all I could really do is actually just look at it. But it's cool to think that this truck is not a concept. Like, this is actually on the road. It's being driven by people, which is really cool. Now, just next to the Hummer EV was the Cadillac Lyriq, and just like the Hummer, this is a car that's actually coming to market. Like, if you looked online, there's actually people that are already making videos about this vehicle. We already know a lot of information about it, and it's cool to see that it was sitting there at CES, but unfortunately, it was in such a tight space that, again, it was hard to get any good photos or videos of the actual car itself. And much like the Hummer EV, it was sitting inside of the show floor. You couldn't test drive it. You couldn't actually take it out on the road, but it's cool to see that GM is really making this push across their other brands like Hummer, like Cadillac, and like Chevy to actually put out some electric vehicles that may potentially be worth driving. Now, from here, I feel like it has to be mentioned, there was also a lot of other vehicles that we already see on the market that are actually on the roads right now available to purchase that were displayed throughout the show floor. So, for example, I saw a couple of Model 3s, I saw a couple of Model S's, a Mustang Mach-E or two, as well as some Lucid cars there on the show floor. That's actually my first time seeing a Lucid in person, so it was cool to actually get eyes on it and see what like the lines of the vehicle actually looked like. But all of these people that brought these cars to the show weren't Ford, it wasn't Lucid, Lucid, it wasn't Tesla themselves, it was actually like third-party companies bringing other vehicles to display like their software or maybe their accessories built for these vehicles. Surprisingly, I didn't see a Model X. I would have thought that somebody would have brought the Model X and opened up the Falcon Wing doors, and that would get a ton of people around, bring attention, but there surprisingly wasn't a Model X on display. But I think that a highlight in seeing these cars that are already available to market, that are already available to purchase right now. It was pretty cool to see the Lucid, just again because I haven't seen that in person. Now, a trend at CES that has really run rampant is these pod cars, as I'll call them. So basically, they're these self-driverless taxis that just accommodate people inside and will bus them around the city. There is like hundreds of these always displayed every single year. Personally, I don't see the allure in them. I understand that, personal transportation could be potentially revolutionized by autonomy and by electric vehicles, but like continuing to show off these pods and just showing like different seating arrangements and different designs is something that really just quite frankly doesn't interest me all that much. Now, much like BMW, Mercedes was there. They did have a big booth. It wasn't outside, but I was like highly disappointed at what they were showing in their booth. I mean, I expected a lot more. When I went to their booth, they were like displaying this robot dog. I'm not kidding. It's like this robot dog that I think is supposed to be inside of your car. It was something that was really strange. They did have one vehicle on display kind of in the middle of the show floor, but again, like when I went to their booth, it was all about this dog. It was really strange, and quite frankly, I expected more from Mercedes at CES other than just bringing just one little car. Amongst all of those vehicles that I just mentioned, there was a lot of other technologies on display, like a lot of charging solutions and a lot of self-driving solutions, although it's funny that like I come home to the Tesla in my garage, which has a great charging infrastructure that I can use already, and it's also got full self-driving in the car. Like right now, it drives me by itself each and every single day. But at CES, there's still companies trying to figure it out and make it seem like it's this brand new technology, when again, Tesla has already been doing it. I mean, I was saying to somebody that like Tesla should come and steal the show by literally just bringing the Cybertruck. Like bring the Cybertruck, put it inside of the show hall, and don't do anything else. They could literally win CES by just doing that. At least the electric vehicle space, they could win CES. Or if not that, just drive it down the street for literally one pass and see who notices it. I thought that would be pretty funny. Anyway, that is everything that I saw at CES when it comes to the electric vehicles. Let me know your thoughts down below after seeing my post here, my video, as well as maybe some other videos. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.